Hello, my name is Joann Patterson. I was born and raised in Bankstown, on top of the hill just outside of Mapleton. I had 6 siblings, all boys. My parents were Carrie and Helen Arnold Glasgow. Most everyone who lived in Bankstown was related. My grandparents and my Aunt Thelma lived across the street. Next to them was Granddad's sister Florence, her husband George, Warner, and their children. Next was Winna Stuffy and her brother, a cousin I'm told. Winna hated cats, and all us kids in that street would go over to her brother's house and yell meow at her, and she'd chase us down the street. Next to them were the Harper family, who were second cousins. Mrs. Harper was born a Warner. The next few houses were my mother's brothers. First was Uncle Fred Arnold and Aunt Kay and family. Then Ward and Betty Arnold and family. Uncle Herm and Aunt Gloria on out the road. Aunt Gloria was born a Lamberson, and the Lambersons owned the farm at the end of Bankstown Road. I can remember going there as a kid for Halloween parties. At the bottom of the hill was also Melvin and Mary Warner, and they were second cousins. Next to them was Bill and Leah Culbers, and they were second cousins. Most of our fathers worked at the sand plant or the brickyard in Mount Union. Granddad was the blacksmith for the sand plant. He made the workers' tools. My dad set the dynamite on Jack's Mountain to break the stone up. He also helped to build the original 1,000 steps. Most of the men at that time had no cars, so they had to work to walk, which I understand that's why they built the steps up to the top of the mountain. Most kids did not come off the hill until junior high school. We played in the woods with our dolls and make-believe houses. We swam in a creek behind Granddad's property. We swung on a rope and dropped into the creek, but you had to watch out for the slate bank and the leeches on the other side. When the creek flooded, we would paddle an old rowboat out in the flooded field. One person rowed the boat and the others dipped the water out. They had so many holes in that. I think that boat belonged to Melvin Warner, who lived at the bottom of the hill. In the wintertime, we ice skated on that same creek up to the bridge to Ted Miller and his sister's house. Every time we'd get up there and get a nice little fire burning, they would chase us out. So usually in the winter when there was snow on the ground, there was a field beside our house which had a high bank, and we would use cardboard or old linoleum to sled. Nobody in my family could afford a sled. The kids from the top of the hill to the Lamberson farm went to the dugout school. 6 grades, 1 room, 1 teacher, a potbelly stove in the middle of the room, and outside toilets. No running water. Each morning, 2 kids, usually boys, would carry a wooden bucket on a stick to Joyce and Vernon Dale's house in Birdville for drinking water. They would carry it back and dump it into a ceramic container to keep it cold. The wooden bucket is on display at the Historical Society, donated by Ellen Dale Miller. I don't know what ever happened to the ceramic container, so if anybody knows where that at, maybe you can let somebody know. There were 4 kids in the 6th grade: Louis Lance, Ellen Dale, Sandra Shoup, and me. There was also some extracurricular activities out at that school, especially on Saturday morning. Us girls, there was probably about 6 of us, and I won't give any names except mine, but we would save our pennies up till we got to 28 cents, and it was my job to go into Parker's store and buy a pack of Lucky Strikes. I was the tallest, the biggest, and they all knew that my mother smoked cigarettes. So the girls in Bankstown would babysit the Parks kids, who owned a garbage company, to make money to ride the bus to Huntington on Saturdays. That bus traveled from Mount Union to Mapleton to Mill Creek and on up to Huntington. I set my Aunt Thelma's hair every Saturday night at 6 o'clock. for 50 cents. I did that probably till I was 23 years old and left to go into the service with my husband and my one child. I never got a raise. After the movies, I was always afraid to walk home by myself past the cemetery, so I had this really good friend, and her name was Sandra Brenner Broombaugh. She was not afraid to go past the cemetery, so she would walk me clear home and walk back to her house. I am glad there were no cell phones or computers back then. We played outside all the time, and we always had friends. Oh, I forgot to tell you one thing. We had a boy that lived out there, which I didn't mention any of the boys because they had nothing to do with us girls. But that boy was a terror. He fought with us girls every day on the way home from school. Well, it just so happens that my dad owned the field next to our house, and it was up on a bank. And all us girls were up on the bank, and this boy made a mistake and started picking on us. One of the girls hit him over the head with her little metal lunch bucket. Well, let me tell you, it scared the heck out of all us kids, and we ran for home. But we seen him get up off the ground and walk home. So this is just a few things that has happened to me in my home out on Bankstown Road from the time I was born, and I left at age 23. And another thing my father did, my father got paid, I think if I remember right, it was like $65. I don't know if that was every week or every 2 weeks. He had all these kids, but on payday, he had enough money to go to Newt Parker's, and Newt always had big, huge slabs of chocolate, and he would chop off a couple pieces of chocolate for my dad and bring it home to us kids. We were grateful. Very poor, but very happy.
You had mentioned earlier about a grandfather helping build the 1,000 steps.
That was my father.
Your father? Oh,
My
okay.
father.
So your father is involved with that.
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
Okay. Do you remember any details about it or his comments about how tough it was? Or
My dad didn't talk much.
okay.
But I do have a picture of my dad, my aunt, and me. I think I was age 10, sitting on a sandstone rock on top of that mountain. But I doubt that we walked up there. I think there used to be a road across Lucy Furnace,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
somewhere in that area.
Yes.
So I'm thinking we probably, well, I know we had a car later on, so we probably rode up.
Yeah, because now they can take their fire equipment up back that way if they have to
Yeah,
take someone
I
down
know
if
there's
someone
a fire
falls or
road.
whatever.
It
Yeah.
runs the whole way down the mountain,
Mhm.
down to towards McVaytown.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
Now you said you had a grandfather. Now he did the dynamite blasting.
No, my dad did the blasting.
He did that too. Okay.
My dad did that on the sand for the brickyard.
Okay.
My grandfather Arnold was the blacksmith
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
So he's the blacksmith at the
sand plant.
plant over here on Oriskany Road.
If that's, yeah.
Okay. Because there used to be the sand plant up in
No,
past the
it was
swimming pool.
it was the one up
The one over
headed
there
for
now.
Route
Okay.
22.
Okay.
Yeah, we would go up, sometimes all us girls would walk up through Pocket Hollow,
Mm-hmm.
down through Mill Creek to go swimming in the pool. It was in the creek. Well, there happened to be some girls there that didn't like us, so they chased us out most every day. And we would walk down Old Route 22, which went through Mill Creek, and you were pretty much to the cutoff to Mapleton. We'd always stop at the sand plant, and there was one of those big Coca-Cola soda coolers, and my grandpa would buy us all a chocolate pop, and we'd head back to Bankstown.
Do you remember in Bankstown, someone else brought this up, but they couldn't remember the details. But do you remember they used to have a little dinky train that ran through Bankstown? Do you remember that?
It was on the edge of our property.
Oh, was it?
It was up
Okay.
on the hill.
Right. You can still see where it traveled. What was it used for?
It hauled the sandstone from out beyond Hares Valley.
Okay, so they
There
brought
were
the same.
some quarries out Harris Valley.
Okay, the ones that are out there now, the inactive ones.
Yeah.
So at one time, they actually brought them in by dinky train on that trail.
Yes, they did.
Okay. Now
And
there's,
it came down right handy to Mary Wise's house. There were two other houses from Mary Wise's house, Lamberson and I don't remember who the other was. Oh, Colbert, no. Oh, wait, Wharton. Oh, maybe Wharton lived there. I shouldn't say that. And that train car crossed over there somewhere.
well, there's a picture we have up on the website that shows a crew of guys up on some sort of trestle that comes from where Mary Wise lives now. It goes right across there, but no one seems to know where it went. It kind of traveled over towards the feed mill in that direction.
I'm thinking maybe it went down the railroad track or something.
Mhm.
Maybe they put it
Possibly.
on cars because the other ones from Jack's Mountain came over down near, well, between the Seven Mountain and the county line somewhere. It came across and went to the brickyard.
That old bridge that used to be down there.
Mhm.
Yeah, we still have some pictures of that. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I have a picture, but I haven't been able to find it. Of my grandfather and some other people that worked at one of the quarries, and they had their mules with them, and that's what they pulled it out with or whatever. It was a great
That's
place to
wild,
live.
yeah.
It really was. We had nothing. Everybody was poor, but we were all the same.
Other people have talked about family gardens. Should
Oh,
do
yeah.
the same thing?
Yep, the field where we sled rided, half the field was Ralph Ramey's. And my dad and Ralph, they planted potatoes, corn, tomatoes, onions, peppers, just about everything you needed for every day. And of course, Ralph Ramey, you probably wouldn't know him, but if you know some of his kids, they're ornery. And he was worse, and he always got in arguments with my dad over who had the biggest potato. But we ate them, it didn't matter if they were big or small. And we had a couple pigs up on the hill too. And of course my grandparents who lived across the street had pigs, and they had chickens. So we always had chickens and eggs to eat. I could remember my dad chopping the heads off them chickens and throwing them in a bucket and making us kids pick the feathers. Nobody does that nowadays.
Maybe the
Nobody.
Amish. Yeah, that's bad.